ต้อนรับเข้าสู่รายการอบรมครูภาษาอังกฤษโดยความร่วมมือระหว่างมูลนิธิการศึกษาทางไกลผ่านดาวเทียมสถานทูตสหรัฐอเมริกาบริษัททีโอทีจำกัดมหาชนสถาบันภาษาจุฬาลงกรณ์มหาวิทยาลัยไทยทีโซและวันนี้ได้รับเกียรติจาก AUA สถานสอนภาษา AUA ขอเรียนเชิญพบกับดร. Doris Parker Director of Education จากสถานสอนภาษา AUA ค่ะ
I just want to welcome all the teachers here, and I want to say how honored we are to be able to work with the Distance Education Foundation. As Jeffrey has mentioned before, we are very committed to teacher training. We believe in the training, especially long-term training of Thai teachers of English. And we would like to give as much support as we can, and we feel this is a way to give support to the outlying areas, to the provinces. We know that knowledge is important with regard to critical thinking, but we think we would like to go beyond knowledge and show you how to apply that knowledge in the classroom. So I think we're going to talk about questioning here and have a very interactive program. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeffrey, who's the supervisor of the Teacher Education Department at AUA. Thank you.
I thought you were going to say the superstar.
The superstar. I should have said superstar.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey, and I'm supervisor of the Teacher Education Department at AUA Language Center. And I'm going to be your television teacher today. This isn't the first time that I've been on TV, but I think it's the first time that I've taught on TV. I tend to move around a bit, jump around, and we're going to do a little jumping today. I hope you're all ready. Okay.
Yeah. Is it on your mic?
Is my mic on? I think
Yeah.
it is. Okay. The title of today's lesson, originally it was question posing. Question posing. The idea of posing questions strategically. But I decided that I really wanted to make the terminology as simple as possible because I'm fourth or fifth in a series of presenters on this program on critical thinking. And Dr. Parker and I, looking back at previous PowerPoint presentations that were used in this format, decided that maybe there was a little too much jargon, a little too much scientific big talk. So I want to keep today's lesson practical and down to earth. Okay, good idea? And guess what? You need to help me. A little bit later, you're all going to be teaching with me. Okay? All right. So, asking questions, a two-way street. What do you think I mean by the two-way street? Two-way communication. So we're in a classroom. One way, who's asking questions? Teacher. Two-way, the students. Good. So normally, who asks the questions? Usually the teacher. Do your students sometimes ask questions? Often? No? So you're from Loy. You don't count. Bangkok students always ask questions, right? Well, I'm going to show you some ways to help your students ask more questions. And I'm going to help you ask better questions. Questions that don't just rely on remembering, don't just rely on prior knowledge, but rely on thinking skills. And I'm not going to use the term critical thinking too much. We're going to be just talking about good old thinking, garden variety thinking, as one of my professors said. Okay? So, I'm going to show you a picture of a very famous person. It might not be too clear. No, it's not me. But this may be the most famous storyteller in history. Who might it be? Very good. It's Aesop. And I don't know if you can see up in the corner. You can almost read the painter has written Aesop. I think this is a Flemish master. This is Aesop. Who was he? He was a storyteller and a writer. Were his stories written? He is carrying a book here. But initially, I think that his stories were oral stories, a tradition similar to the tradition of education in Thailand. Okay, it's a photograph of Aesop. No, it's a painting. Where did Aesop live? In Milwaukee? No. Of course not. Where did he live? Some Asian country. Well, it's not far from Asia, but I don't think it's Asia. I think it's Europe. Which, you're close. Not Rome. Yes, he lived in Greece. Okay, he lived in ancient Greece. So it's Aesop. He lived in Greece. About when? Long time ago, right? More than 2,000. That's excellent. I have a date here. About 550 BC. So how many years ago? More than 2,000. 2,000. Very good, 2,558 years ago. Excellent math. And what did he do for a living? Did he make his living just telling stories? I don't think so. That was his talent. Anybody know what Aesop did for a living? I think he worked for free. Next to nothing. He was yeah, very good. He was a teacher. And this is why he worked for next to nothing. He was a teacher slave. Slave. Teacher slave. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. I'm just kidding you. He's a teacher slave who told fables. What is a fable? It's a story, a short story. What's special? What's special about a fable, though? Characters are very often animals who can talk, but fairy tales often have animals that could talk too. Okay, they have morals. What's a moral? Be satisfied with what you have. That's an example of a moral good. And that is probably the most common moral that you find in Aesop. Be satisfied with who you are, with what you have. And you remember that moral. I want you to use it later. But that's an example. Who can define a moral? A moral. The moral of the story is. Maybe a synonym for moral. Okay, it's to teach somebody. It's a kind of lesson, right? It's a kind of lesson. Morals are values. And these values kind of teach us what American educators like to call life lessons. Life lessons. How to live your life as a good person, okay? How to live in society and be a positive force in society. we're going to look at an Aesop's fable right now. But before we do, we're going to do a little bit of brainstorming. How many animals can you think of that can jump? Kangaroo? Rabbits, frogs. Monkeys are good jumpers. Rabbits, monkeys, frogs, kangaroos. Dogs are okay at jumping. I have a part-time cat, and my part-time cat can jump this high, like a rocket. It's unbelievable. Jumps right through the window. Tigers can jump. Cricket, good, yeah. Many insects. Crickets. Yes, some lizards can jump a little bit, sure. I like lizards. Lice jumping. Yeah, lice can jump. And fleas, right? Fleas. Crickets, grasshoppers. Well, we're going to be working with a story today about two of my favorite animals. We're going to be working with a story called The Rabbits and the Frogs. Now, you may find in this presentation that we'll be going in and out of different media. Sometimes we may use the opaque projector. I'm going to try to display some words and phrases from the story on the PowerPoint. If you can't read them, I'm going to have the technicians come up and we're going to switch to the opaque projector, okay? The visualizer. So I'm going to scatter some words and phrases, important words and phrases, that I pulled out of this fable, The Rabbits and the Frogs. And here's the first one. Let's do a little test here. Can you read that? What does it say? Okay. Now, as I project more of these words and phrases, what I want you to do is I want you to ask me questions about the story. So, for example, here we have a meeting, and we have our two groups of characters, the rabbits and the frogs. Who can ask me a question about the meeting? And maybe I can give you... Anybody? A question about a meeting.
อาจารย์กดไมค์ด้วยนะคะถ้าถาม
Did the frogs and the rabbits have a meeting? No, they didn't. Maybe they should have, though. Maybe in your version, they can have a meeting. No, the frogs and the rabbits did not have a meeting.
กดไมค์ด้วยค่ะ
Anybody? Let me give you some help. I'm going to put all of the words and phrases, and I'll give you some question words to help you think a little bit. You're going to be, hello, Hua Hin. We're going to have to turn you off. I'm sorry. Gik.
I can't hear you clearly. It just follow you step by step, Jeffrey.
Okay, good to see you, Gik.
Nice to see you again.
Do you remember this activity?
Pardon?
Do you remember this?
It is. Yeah,
Okay,
right.
good.
I remember it.
Great. Gik is one of our star students from the Teacher Education Department
Thank you,
ELTC
Jeff.
courses. She is truly one of the exceptional teachers here in Thailand, and we always look forward to working with her. Are you ready, Gik? Do you have all your copies made?
Yes,
Markers?
we are ready.
You're ready. Okay. We're gonna turn you off right now here in Bangkok and look at our word map. Your people should be looking at their word map too, and maybe helping us with some of the questions. If people in your audience are able to formulate a question from these keywords and phrases, go ahead and
I
shout.
help them.
Okay, shout it out
What
for
you
us.
gonna do, right? I help them to follow your step.
Okay, Gik.
Yeah,
My
right.
shadow. All right, thanks, Gik. And now we're going to have to turn the inset off. Can we turn that off? Oh.
ปิดช่องข้างนอก
Yeah, thanks. Good. But I need the slide. Can you read that okay? We have a meeting. Let's go around like a clock. A meeting. Read with me. Afraid. Drown. Do you know what drown means? What does drown mean? My partner? Yeah, you go underwater and what happens? You die. You die. What is the shore? Like the beach, yeah. It's the land that is by the side of the water. Jumped into the water.
Jump into the water.
Okay. We have all of our keywords and phrases. And now what I want you to do is I want you to ask me questions. There are some question words: who, what, when, where, why, which. And because it's a story, we tend to use the past tense. So earlier you asked, did the rabbits and the frogs have a meeting? I said, no, the two groups of animals did not meet. So how about a who question with meeting?
กดไมค์ด้วยค่ะอาจารย์
Who with meeting? Who was at the meeting? Okay. The rabbits. Only the rabbits. The frogs weren't invited to the meeting. Do you want to ask a follow-up about the meeting? Maybe a what question? What? Okay, where are they? They're probably in a field near a lake or maybe in a small forest having this meeting.
Who did the rabbit meet at the meeting?
Who did the rabbits meet at the meeting? The other rabbits. So it was kind of a rabbit meeting, a rabbit gathering. Good. Why did they meet? Thanks. They met for the meeting. They met because they had a problem. Who made the noise? Oh, you're way ahead of me. They had a problem. I'll tell you in a minute who made the noise. You saved that question. They had a problem.
What was the problem?
Well, if we can see the words.
กลับไปที่ PowerPoint ด้วยค่ะ
Okay, we're gonna work from this, I guess. Can you zoom out? The problem was the rabbits were afraid. What were they afraid of? They were afraid of the other animals. Well, what animals would rabbits be afraid of? Do you have rabbits in Thailand? You do? Where? At Jatujak? I think that rabbits aren't native. You have rabbits in Chicago, though. And we have a lot of rabbits in Milwaukee. But what kind of animals do you think rabbits would be afraid of? Dogs. Yeah, sure. What else? Tigers. Snakes. Oh, yes.
Cat.
Cats. I have some stories about cats and rabbits. Other animals. Eagles. Monkeys? Monkeys can be scary, but I think rabbits aren't too scared of them. But snakes and eagles for sure. Why are rabbits afraid of these animals? Why? They're going to eat them. Have any of you ever eaten rabbit? Okay, the two American guys. How did you have your rabbit prepared? Braised. Do you know the German dish Hassenpfeffer? It's rabbit with ginger. It's quite good. My grandparents were German and Austrian, and I grew up eating rabbit quite often. Quite tasty. So the rabbits have a good reason to be afraid, and they're afraid of these animals that want to eat them. But you know what? They're kind of tired of always being afraid. They're afraid of all these other animals. Snakes, eagles, dogs, cats, tigers. maybe monkeys. So, more questions. More questions. Good.
Perhaps you can ask Hua Hin
Oh, hey, Hua Hin.
to
Gik.
ask some questions.
Gik, are you still with me?
There she is.
Or even Bangkok, you're welcome too. Let's look at decided. Who wants to form a question with decided? Gik, you.
ไม่ได้ยินนะคะหัวหินคะ
Bangkok, help us.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Hello. Okay. Okay. So I ask you the
Sure.
question. What did the rabbit decide to do?
Good, good. What did the rabbits
Thank
decide
you.
to do? Bad news. Bad news. They decided to kill themselves. Mass suicide. Because they're tired of being afraid all the time. They just live their lives in fear. So they're going to kill themselves. You know, I didn't put a how question up there. Hua Hin? How about a how question? They're going to kill themselves. Guns?
กดไมค์ได้ค่ะอาจารย์
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Jeff, could you ask me the question again?
I didn't put how up there.
Okay, right. So you would like me to start the question with how?
Sure.
Okay.
They're going to kill themselves.
Okay, so I will ask for the volunteer.
Okay.
Okay.
If not, my partner's ready here. 5, 4.
We've got a volunteer now.
We've got a
Jeffrey.
volunteer. Great.
She
This
will
is
help me.
Pretty exciting.
Okay, I will try. How did the frog feel?
How'd the frogs feel? How did the frogs feel? They haven't arrived on the scene yet. Let's wait and find out how the frogs felt.
Okay, what about Bangkok here? What's your question on how?
How?
How would they kill themselves?
How would they kill themselves? Well, their plan was to drown themselves. What a horrible way to die. I was watching Criminal Minds last night on DVD, and I understand that drowning, when your lungs fill with water, is just the most horrible way to die. Oh my God, those poor rabbits. But then we can eat them, right? So they're going to drown themselves. And let me ask you a question. Looking at that map, where do you think they're going to try to drown themselves? In the lake. Okay, in the lake. That might be Lake Michigan. I don't know. I don't. And on the shore. Anybody? Bangkok? Hua Hin? On the shore. How about a who question? Who was on the shore? Who was crying on the shore? The frogs were crying on the shore. Who was crying? I like that. The frogs are on the shore. Isn't that where frogs usually sit and wait, maybe get a little sunshine? So the frogs are on the shore, and the next one jumped into the water. Good. Who jumped into the water? Hua Hin, are we? Did you hear that? Who jumped into the water? Who do the people in Hua Hin think jumped into the water? The rabbits or the frogs?
ไม่ได้ยินค่ะหัวหิน
Oh, okay. Who do you
Maybe
think?
both of them jump into the water.
Oh, good. Like both of them jumped in. What do you think? Both? Or just the rabbits? Or just the frogs?
Just the rabbits.
Just the rabbits. Well, surprise. The frogs jumped into the water. You know how frogs do that. Frogs are good swimmers. They jumped into the water. Why? They were afraid of the rabbits. Why
Escape from the
were they afraid of those rabbits? Why were they? Why do you think the frogs were afraid of the rabbits? And the word map could help you here.
afraid from the noise of the rabbit jumping.
Yeah, good. Where did that? They were afraid of the. Thank you from Nong Chok. You have lots of frogs out there. Normally, frogs are the noisy ones, but in this case, they're afraid of the noise from the rabbits. What kind of noise do rabbits make? Let me hear rabbit noise. No, rabbits don't growl. What kind of noise do rabbits make?
Hi, Jeff.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a teacher here want to answer the question. What kind of noise? Okay.
Okay, go. Let's hear that noise.
Hi, it's kind of very loud noise and scary noise, right?
Give me an example of the loud and scary noise.
Like a thunder.
Like thunder.
Yeah.
Thunder rabbits. The thunder bunnies. The thunder bunnies.
It's possible.
Is it possible? Well, how do they make this thunder-like noise? With their mouths?
It is because there are a lot of frogs jumping, right? And no. Because the rabbit is very large, and when it jumps, it makes very loud noise. And the frogs, their size are small, so they think that the noise is very scary, like a thunder.
You know that I think that's a very good explanation, because frogs have very sensitive skin, and when they're sitting on the shore, if they feel vibrations, this thunder you're talking about, they're going to get scared. They're going to be afraid, and they're going to jump into the water. So when they're jumping, do you hear the sound I'm making when I'm jumping? That's the noise. That's the noise that they make. So very, very good, Hua Hin. Thank you, sir. The thunder bunnies. The thunder bunnies. Okay. And we have one more phrase from the story. Hua Hin or Bangkok. This is the championship round. The winner with the final question will get a Thunder Bunny trophy. We have one more phrase.
มีใครจะตอบไหมคะ One of the older rabbits ตั้งคำถามยังไงคะ
I see some of you.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
What did one of the old rabbits do or suggest?
Suggest. Good. When this elder rabbit saw the frogs jump into the water, he said, "Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Do you want to hear the whole story? Now, I'm going to try to project it. This is kind of...
I suggest that we pause here.
Yeah.
Yeah. While you're showing. Yeah.
Okay,
so that I can sum up a little bit.
We're going to pause and...
That's okay.
we're going to pause for a minute.
โอเค ค่ะ จากตั้งแต่เริ่มต้นนะคะที่อาจารย์เจฟฟรีย์ได้เริ่มต้นมาเนี่ยนะคะจะเห็นว่าคืออาจารย์จริงๆแล้ววันนี้อาจารย์อยากจะนำเรื่องนิทานอีสปเนี่ยมาให้พวกเราเนี่ยได้ใช้เป็น passage ที่ใช้ในการกิจกรรมที่จะส่งเสริม critical thinking ให้กับนักเรียนใช่ไหมคะแต่ว่าอาจารย์เริ่มต้นที่นำเข้าสู่เรื่องโดยเอาภาพอีสปเข้ามาก่อนนะคะว่าเขาคือใครคือเราเรียนเรื่องนิทานอีสปเราเอามาสอนนักเรียนเนี่ยหลายสิบหลายร้อยเรื่องแต่ว่าเราไม่เคยเห็นหน้าเขาเลยนะคะก็เป็นโอกาสดีที่เป็นนำความรู้รอบตัวเข้ามานะคะแนะนำเข้าสู่เรื่องนี้นะคะเกี่ยวกับประวัติของอีสปเสร็จแล้วอาจารย์ก็จะพูดถึงนิทานเรื่อง The Rabbits and the Frogs เนี่ยแต่ว่าอาจารย์ไม่ได้เอา passage ให้อ่านทันทีนะคะอาจารย์แค่นำเป็นคล้ายๆเป็น mind map มาภาพเมื่อกี้แล้วก็อาจารย์บอกว่าอาจารย์ดึง phrase ที่สำคัญหรือว่าคำศัพท์ที่สำคัญที่ปรากฏในเรื่องเนี่ยมานะคะที่ทำเป็นรูปเป็นเขียนเป็นรัศมีรอบวงกลมตรงกลางก็คือชื่อเรื่อง The Rabbits and the Frogs แล้วก็อาจารย์ให้ตั้งคำถาม What when where why how which did the อะไรอย่างนั้นนะคะให้พอเราเห็นวลีหนึ่งหรือคำหนึ่งก็ให้ตั้งคำถามนะคะซึ่งแล้วก็อาจารย์จะเป็นผู้ตอบนะคะคำถามนั้นก็คือเราไม่เคยอ่านเรื่องเลยเราก็ถามอะไรก็แล้วแต่ที่คิดว่าน่าจะเกี่ยวข้องโดยใช้คำนั้นถามแล้วเราก็จะค่อยๆได้เรื่องนั้นออกมาจากปากอาจารย์แต่ว่าคืออาจารย์จะไม่เล่าโดยตรงอาจารย์จะรอให้เราถามก่อนนะคะซึ่งอันนี้ก็เป็นอะไรฮะ elicitation technique อย่างหนึ่งใช่ไหมคะแทนที่จะให้นักเรียนอ่านเรื่องเลยนะคะเราก็ให้นักเรียนเข้าใจเรื่องโดยการตั้งคำถามอยากรู้อะไรเกี่ยวกับเรื่องนั้นนะคะในคำที่อาจารย์กำหนดนะคะนี่ก็เป็นวิธีหนึ่งในการที่จะสอนเพราะการอ่านไม่ใช่แค่ให้นักเรียนอ่านได้อย่างเดียวตรงนี้นักเรียนใช้ความคิดเลยนะคะต้องใช้ความคิดไม่ใช่ just อ่านไม่ใช่ memorizing อย่างที่อาจารย์เจฟฟรีย์บอกนะคะแต่ต้องใช้ reasoning นะคะในการที่จะทำความเข้าใจเรื่องและตอนนี้อาจารย์ก็เปิดเผยเรื่องออกมาแล้วนะคะเรื่องทั้งหมดค่ะ over to you Jeffrey
I think that was a very good point. This activity that we just did, we're going to read the story in a second, is primarily a listening activity. So yes, you're asking questions, so there's that spoken component. You're reading the keywords. But more than anything, I think especially for those of you who maybe didn't ask a question, you're listening and trying to get an idea of the story, right? Trying to picture it all in your mind. The name of that activity is called Questions, Please. Thank you. Are you ready to read the whole story? You know, I wonder if my partner would read the story for us. You remind me so much of an assistant of mine from the Philippines. Her name's Telly. Okay. Surprise. It's me. What's your name again? I'm sorry.
You can call me Pat.
Okay, Pat.
Yeah. The rabbits and the frogs. Once upon a time, the rabbits had a meeting. They were very tired of being afraid. They were tired of running away from all the other animals. They decided to do something. One rabbit suggested that life was not worth living. Let's all go to the lake. We would jump in together and drown ourselves. Then our troubles will be over. So they ran toward the lake. Just as they reached the shore, all the frogs on the shoreline jumped into the water because of the noise made by the rabbits. One of the older rabbits turned to his friends and said, "Let's think about this some more, my friends, because it seems the frogs are afraid of us." Okay, it's hard to read.
No, that was beautiful. That was beautifully read. How do you like that picture? I love that. I didn't have that picture until this week, and I was lucky to find it. I found it at a Latin language site. They do these Aesop's fables in Latin. So fables are quite popular in language teaching, okay? And remember, what makes a fable so special? They have, what do they have? A moral. Uh-oh. You've been waiting for this question. What's the moral? What do we learn from the rabbits and the frogs?
Can I answer?
Where did that come from? Yes, of course.
Don't look down upon yourself or something like that.
That's very, very well put. Don't look down on yourself, okay? And why not? I'm prepared to accept it as it is because it's so beautifully put. But can you expand on that?
Maybe sometimes we have something good in ourselves, so don't look bad at yourself or something like that.
That's pretty good. That's really the deepest moral of the story is don't get down on yourself. So in this case, the rabbits are down on themselves because they're always afraid, right? But what do they learn? What do they learn from the frogs? when those frogs jump into the water, what does that old rabbit realize?
Proud of yourself. Maybe you have something in yourself, the value or something like that in yourself as well.
That, yeah, that life is always worth living, that there's something of value in us. What does the older rabbit say to his friends? Maybe because it seems, the frogs are afraid of us. So is there maybe something else that they learn there? That they have something of value, and that somebody else
has their own problems.
Somebody has their own problem. So we might rephrase this as saying, no matter how big you think your problems are, somebody else has even bigger problems. It's interesting that this group, and Hua Hin, I'm including you in this, you've gone for what is normally the more difficult moral for a class to pull out of this tale. I did this presentation once at ABAC to mostly foreign teachers, and they gave me a proverb, okay, a proverb that fits the story well. And it has to do with jumping. Anybody know a 3-word proverb that has to do with decision making? Dr. Parker?
Think before you act.
Think before you act. That's 4 words. Yeah. There's another one, though, that is perfect for frogs and rabbits. Look.
Is it look before you leave?
Look before you leap. Who said that? Look before. Oh,
From
sorry.
Hua Hin, Jeff. We help each
I'm
other.
not a math
it's
teacher.
not me.
I'm not a math
Jeff.
teacher. Look before you leap.
Okay.
So,
is it right?
yes, was that Gik in Hua Hin?
Yeah, right.
Very good. Look before you leap is another good moral that we find in this story. How does look before you leap apply to this? The rabbits have this meeting, right? And they make this decision. Was it a careful decision? No. What was their decision? To kill themselves. It's always a bad decision. Always the wrong way. It's always the easy way out. So, look before you leap. Think carefully. Maybe you think you have problems, but maybe there are other people less fortunate than you. Let's look at those 2 proverbs for a minute here. Let's look at, no matter how big your problems are, somebody has bigger problems. Can you think of a time in your life where you felt that way? That you maybe felt down, but then you realized, hey, there are other people who, like as we're all teachers, right? Do we earn a lot of money? Do you make a big salary? Yes, you do. Or maybe you're a supervisor. Do you make a lot of money?
I think I do. Because it doesn't matter how much I earn. The most important thing, how much I can keep, I can save.
Oh, good. Now we need the ant and the grasshopper, right? It doesn't matter how much I earn. It matters how much I can save. Good. But has there ever been a time where you felt like your luck was bad, but then you realized that, hey, somebody else? Try and think of a time in your life when that happened. Anybody? Hua Hin? Dr. Parker? Naraporn? It could be about your job as a teacher, could be about your family life, could be about your marriage or your non-marriage. I'll give you an example of how this moral sometimes applies to me. I'm not married. I don't have kids. And sometimes I feel very lonely, especially if I'm watching a family movie like The Joy Luck Club. Maybe you know this movie. That movie always makes me cry. I go, oh, I've got nobody. But then I look at all these naughty kids in my neighborhood, and I think, maybe I'm lucky. Maybe lonely is lucky in this case. And I'll give you one more example. Sometimes I feel like, oh, I don't make enough money. And then in the morning, we have garbage collectors that come through my neighborhood. And they're really nice guys. They always Y me, and they always run to my gate to get my garbage. And I think, boy, these guys, they make a lot less money than me, but they seem pretty happy. But that work is awfully dirty. So even though I don't make much money, garbage men make even less. Yeah. How about look before you leap? Was there ever a time in your life where you made a decision without thinking carefully about it? Think about a bad decision you made because you didn't plan. Take 1 minute. I'm going to think of okay, I've got mine. I'm not going to tell you. Can you share your bad decision with your partner? Okay? Tell about a time in your life when you didn't think things through carefully.
ค่ะอาจารย์เจฟฟรีย์ก็ให้อาจารย์ลองคุยกันนะคะเป็นคู่ก็ได้ค่ะแล้วก็ลองคิดถึงประสบการณ์ที่อาจารย์อาจจะคิดอะไรทำอะไรไปสักอย่างที่ไม่รอบคอบนะคะหรือว่าอย่างที่คิดอย่างไม่ลึกซึ้งนะคะไม่ละเอียดแล้วก็ตัดสินใจลงไปซึ่งมันอาจจะเป็นการตัดสินใจที่ผิดพลาดนะคะแล้วก็อาจจะมานึกได้ทีหลังนะคะว่าเราควรจะเป็นอย่างนั้นเราควรจะทำอย่างนี้มากกว่านะคะลองดูเกี่ยวกับการงานเกี่ยวกับการสอนก็ได้ค่ะเกี่ยวกับชีวิตเกี่ยวกับครอบครัวนะคะเมื่อกี้อาจารย์ยกตัวอย่างนะคะอย่างเช่นอาจารย์บอกว่าอาจจะคิดว่าตัวเองเนี่ยไม่ได้แต่งงานนะคะรู้สึกแย่จังเลยนะคะดูหนังชีวิตหนังครอบครัวแล้วก็รู้สึกอิจฉาเขานะคะอยากจะมีครอบครัวแต่พอไปเห็นเพื่อนบ้านที่มีลูกซนวิ่งกันอยู่เต็มไปหมดก็นึกอีกทีว่าจริงๆแล้วก็เป็นโชคดีของอาจารย์ที่ไม่ได้แต่งงานแล้วก็ไม่ได้มีลูกค่ะ
Okay, I heard most of you talking about some bad decisions that you made, you didn't plan through. Thank you for that nice discussion. Right now, I warned you that I was going to have you do some teaching. Can we switch to the PowerPoint, please? Not zoom in on Jeff. Oh, okay. Now it's your turn. I've given each pair a fable. There are 2 different fables out there. And what I want you to do now, with your partner, I want you to read the new fable that you have and talk about the moral. Okay? Take about 5 minutes. Read it and then discuss the moral.
ค่ะทางหัวหินอาจารย์วารีก็คงแจกแล้วนะคะแจกเรื่องนิทานอิศปนะคะคู่ละ1เรื่องนะคะก็มีอยู่2เรื่องนะคะแล้วก็ตอนนี้ให้อาจารย์ที่ได้รับเรื่องแล้วเนี่ยอ่านเรื่องแล้วก็คุยกันถึง moral นะคะคำสอนที่จะได้จากเรื่องนั้นค่ะอาจารย์ให้เวลา5 นาที Is it 5 minutes?
Yeah, half the pairs get one fable, half the pairs get the other.
Okay.
Okay? So I'm not going to give you what I think the morals of these are. You're the teachers now. If you're using fables in your classroom, you need to be able to figure out these morals. So, now, I gave you some big paper and some markers. Do you know what you're going to do now? The paper is your whiteboard. I want you to make a word map just like I made before. Yeah? And I want you to take words and phrases from your fable and put them in a circle around the title. So draw a big circle in the middle. Yeah, could we maybe pass this out so you have an example? Make a word map like this. Big circle in the center with the title, and then words and phrases from your fable around the circle. But let me warn you, don't give away the ending, okay? So when your students ask you questions, they don't get the whole story, but they get most of it, okay? Do you have to write the question words at the top? It might help. It's up to you. I think your students are going to need question words as prompts, as a scaffold to help them ask the questions. So it's up to you.
ค่ะขั้นต่อไปนะคะหลังจากอาจารย์แต่ละคู่ได้อ่านเรื่องอีสปแล้วก็พูดถึง moral ที่ได้จากเรื่องนั้นแล้วนะคะ
Yeah, big. Oh, that's beautiful.
อาจารย์ก็นำกระดาษเปล่า1แผ่นนะคะแล้วก็มาร์คเกอร์นะคะมาเขียนวงกลมนะคะแล้วก็เขียนชื่อเรื่องนิทานอีสปที่อาจารย์ได้ไว้ตรงกลางแล้วก็เลือก keywords หรือว่า phrases นะคะจากในเรื่องมาเขียนรอบๆวงกลมนั้นนะคะเหมือนอย่างตัวอย่างนะคะในชีทที่อาจารย์ได้ไปพร้อมทั้งเขียน who what when where why which did the ไว้ข้างบนก็ได้นะคะเพื่อเตือนความจำนะคะว่าจะต้องตั้งคำถามโดยใช้คำพวกนั้นนะคะค่ะอาจารย์เลือกเฉพาะ keywords มานะคะมาเขียนรอบ
ๆ use words and phrases okay
ค่ะใช้คำหรือว่าวลีแล้วก็แต่ว่าอย่าเอาตรงที่เป็น ending มานะคะตรงตอนจบของเรื่องไม่ต้อง
You'll notice on my nouns and noun phrases I've included articles a, an, and the. That's always a good idea because if you don't include your articles, your students aren't going to use them, right? I know how students are here. So with your nouns and noun phrases, use your articles. Oh, that's beautiful. Can I just hold it up for a minute? This group is off to a nice start. They have some clouds. Wow. Looks great. Remember also that when you teach this fable, you're going to begin by eliciting questions from these keywords from your students. So the keywords and phrases should suggest good questions. As you're choosing your words and phrases, kind of test them to make sure that you can ask questions easily from those words and phrases. If it's hard for you, it's going to be hard for your friends and students.
ค่ะในการเลือก keywords นะคะอาจารย์เจฟฟรีย์ก็ได้ให้เทคนิคไว้2อย่างที่1ก็คือว่าต้องเป็น keywords จริงๆนะคะเป็นคำที่สำคัญที่สามารถที่จะถามคำถามแล้วก็ทราบเกี่ยวกับเรื่องนั้นได้นะคะแล้วก็ประการที่2ก็คือว่าเมื่ออาจารย์เขียน keyword หรือว่า phrase ลงไปแล้วเนี่ยอาจารย์ลองตั้งคำถามเองนะคะอาจารย์บอกว่าไม่ควรจะยากเกินไปควรจะตั้งคำถามได้เพราะถ้าเราตั้งคำถามเองไม่ได้เพื่อนของเราหรือนักเรียนของเราก็คงจะตั้งคำถามไม่ได้เหมือนกันนะคะ
Yeah, good. You want to give the students a good sense of the story so they get sort of a picture of what's happening, but not everything. Save that for when they read it and figure out the moral. About 3 more minutes. 3 more minutes.
ค่ะอาจารย์เจฟเพิ่มเติมว่า keywords ควรจะเป็นการให้ภาพรวมของเรื่องนะคะแล้วก็ให้พอเธอที่จะรู้เรื่องนั้นนะคะเมื่อเขาตั้งคำถามค่ะเพราะฉะนั้นการคิด keywords ที่จะมาเขียนเนี่ยสำคัญมากนะคะอีก3 นาทีค่ะอาจารย์เขียนลงกระดาษได้เลยนะคะ
One of the groups down there used in the middle of the road, which I thought was pretty good. In the middle of the road. In the middle of the road. You only need about 10 words, phrases. Mine has 10. How many do you have? They're ready. 9. Do you want to elicit your title when you teach, or do you want to put your title on there? Sometimes I'll do it where they start blank and then their first task is to elicit. Oh, okay. You might want to add how to your question words. I know I forgot it on mine, and then I used it. When I go home, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add how to my PowerPoint. Yeah! This group is ready to rumble. You added how? Great. Yeah, this looks very good. I think you want keep. You want keep. Nice. That's a good map. You're going to get a very good lesson out of that. Those phrases are perfect for questions. This is going to be good too. Great. This one got turned upside down. Where's your partner? It's okay. Your students will be able to read it. Okay, try to finish your map. We have quite a few groups who are ready. We need to move to the next step. All right, you're ready. Ready. I think that the wolf and the dog is easier. It's easier to find the keywords. I can see that now. But the blind man and the lame man is much easier for the moral. Okay, that looks good. Nong Jock, you did a great job. I love it. Okay, are you ready? You got to finish up.
หัวหินเสร็จไหมคะหัวหิน
Yeah, we ready now.
Oh, good.
Another thing that's nice about this technique of using a word map to elicit questions is it allows you to pre-teach some of the vocabulary, right? For example, this group the group over there has blind and lame. Your students may know blind. They're probably not going to know lame.
ค่ะอาจารย์เจฟก็บอกว่า keywords พวกนี้เนี่ยถ้าเผื่อเป็นคำศัพท์ที่ยากก็เราก็อาจจะสอนศัพท์เข้าไปด้วยเลยในตัวได้นะคะสอนซะก่อนเพื่อให้เขาเข้าใจเขาจะได้ตั้งคำถามได้ค่ะ
It's built-in pre-teaching. Not only are you eliciting questions, getting this questions please listening activity going, expanding the fable into a discussion, but you're also getting vocabulary so that when they do read it, they'll have better comprehension.
ค่ะกรุงเทพเสร็จไหมคะ
You're ready.
เสร็จหมดแล้วนะคะ
Don't write the moral.
ค่ะ
Don't write your moral. But you have the right moral though.
So both Bangkok and Hua Hin are ready.
Okay, Hua Hin. Now, Hua Hin, the tricky thing here will be to get
Hi,
people.
Jeff.
Gik, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Is everyone ready with their mind maps?
Yeah, we're ready.
Ready.
For our mind map, we got 2 groups to present to you. One is from the teacher, and another group is the student.
Well, that's not exactly how I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to do it. In your pairs, you have 2 people. Right now, you need to decide who is going to be the teacher and who's going to be the student. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the teachers stand up and take their whiteboards with their maps and their Fable and go to a different student.
Okay.
And then elicit the story through questions with the new student. Okay? So decide who your teacher is going to be. Every partner, every pair. Who's your teacher going to be? You're going to be the teacher. I think you're going to be great.
ค่ะ
Who's going to be the teacher?
แต่ละคู่นะคะก็เลือกว่าคนหนึ่งจะเป็นครูคนหนึ่งจะเป็นนักเรียนนะคะแล้วคนที่เป็นครูก็จะเอา mind map นั่นออกมานะคะพร้อมกับตัวเรื่องนะคะแล้วก็จะต้องเดินไปหาคู่ที่มีเรื่องอีกเรื่องหนึ่งนะคะ Yeah, they have to go to the different pair with different story.
Right, but the teachers are going to stand up and go to a new student.
ค่ะ
So
ค่ะก็จะสลับกันนะคะค่ะเพราะว่ามีแจกไป2เรื่องนะคะครูคู่ที่ได้เรื่องที่1นะคะก็เลือกคนหนึ่งเป็นครูคู่ที่ได้เรื่องที่2ก็เลือกคนหนึ่งเป็นครูคนหนึ่งเป็นนักเรียนเหมือนกันแล้วก็คนที่ได้เรื่องที่1ครูนะคะถือ mind map ออกมานะคะแล้วก็เรื่องทั้งหมดแล้วก็เดินไปหาคนที่เป็นนักเรียนในคู่ในเรื่องที่2ค่ะค่ะจะสลับกันแบบนี้นะคะแล้วก็จะต้องเอาคีย์เวิร์ดไปโชว์เพื่อที่จะให้คนที่เป็นนักเรียนในเรื่องที่2ซึ่งไม่เห็นเรื่องของเราตั้งคำถามค่ะ
Okay, so teachers, stand up.
ทุกคู่ค่ะใครเป็นครู
Teachers
เชิญ
stand.
ยืนค่ะ
Don't move yet, because this is going to be tricky. Take your whiteboard and your story. Good, yeah, like you're going to need that.
ค่ะเอา
Where's
mind
your
map
story?
ค่ะ
Where's
กั
your
บ
Fable?
เรื่องเต็มค่ะ
Okay, I want to make sure that every pair has a teacher. Okay, thank you. And the teachers, who are the teachers back here? Okay. Now, those of you in the very back, just wait. Those of you in the middle, just wait. First thing we're going to do is I want the teachers from this side and the teachers from this side to change. Okay? Good.
ค่ะสลับกันค่ะตรงกลางรอก่อนใช่ไหมคะ The middle row can wait right ค่ะอาจารย์2ฝั่งนะคะสลับที่กันค่ะ
In the back, don't move yet. In the back, don't move. Okay, good. And now here in the center, okay, you have the wolf and the dog, you have the wolf and the dog. Can you go to this group, teacher? And can you come to this group? And can you two come up to the front?
ค่ะตอนนี้สลับคู่กันนะคะคนที่มีบทบาทเป็นครูให้ไปหา
And
คู่ใหม่
now
ค่ะ
in the back, teachers here stand and change. You two over there and you two over here. Okay? Yeah, you can just. Can you change? Change. Oh, you already have. They're way ahead of me. Okay. Oh, that is the most difficult moment in the lesson. Do we have a lost lamb? Okay, what? You did the blind man and the lame man? Who's your... Okay. Okay. All right. So teachers, what you're going to do now, you're going to elicit questions from your student. Don't tell them the story. Don't tell them the answers. Elicit questions. About 5 minutes. And then when they're ready, you can let them read the fable or you can read the fable to them. Then discuss the moral. Go.
So the teacher just show the mind map right
Right.
yeah
And elicit
not the
questions.
story and elicit questions ค่ะคนที่มีบทบาทเป็นครูนะคะเอา mind map ให้นักเรียนดูนะคะแล้วก็ให้นักเรียนพยายามตั้งคำถามจาก mind map นั้นนะคะแล้วก็ตอบนะคะอย่าให้ดูเรื่องเต็มๆนะคะยังไม่ให้ดูเรื่องนะคะค่ะ5 นาทีค่ะอาจารย์ทางหัวหินโอเคไหมคะ
Yeah. Who in it looks like you've got to...
We do it now. We have 2 groups.
I think we should give them a chance to write some more difficult questions. Yeah. Okay, I think it's about, if you haven't already, teachers, let your students read the fable. Let them read it, and then discuss the moral with them.
ค่ะหลังจากให้
Don't tell them the moral. Ask them to figure it out.
ค่ะหลังจากให้นักเรียนตั้งคำถามนะคะอาจารย์ตอบแล้วตอนนี้ให้นักเรียนอ่านเรื่องได้แล้วค่ะแล้วก็คุยกันว่ามี moral อะไรนะคะ behind the story อาจารย์เจฟฟรีย์บอกว่าอย่าบอกนะคะ moral ให้พยายามดึงออกมาได้นะคะค่ะ
Moral. This is an easy one. Did you discuss the moral? Yeah. What's the moral of the? Maybe you have 2 or 3. You should set to your mind. Be satisfied with what you have. Sure. Okay. Okay. Can I have your attention? Now, normally what I would do is I would send the teachers back to their homerooms, and then the students would become teachers and get a chance to teach also. But we're not going to have time for that. You've seen how one round goes. In the next round, normally the students become teachers and then switch again. And I think that's a good way to do it. Do you think your students could do this? Really? Gick, how did your students do? It looked good from here.
Right, Jeff. They can.
How do they do? We saw this young girl with glasses doing a very nice job of eliciting questions from her word map. Gick, did it work okay with your students?
Jeff, yeah. Jeff, can you hear me?
A bit.
Softly.
Okay, so they did it. They did it quite well. They can ask the question from the keyword and the phrases, and they can get the moral from the story.
Okay. And who was asking the questions? The students. And what did they use to ask their questions? Keywords and phrases, and I guess also the question words, okay? Some of you asked, should we write our question words at the top of the mind map? This is the first time, and I've done this activity many times. I think in your teaching situations, this is always a good idea. Again, if you start with the mind map and your students are used to this kind of activity, maybe you don't need the question words. If they're not used to it, you might want to elicit. What are the question words? WH words. Who, what, where, when. And don't forget how. How is it's a very thoughtful question word. Okay, I think you did a nice job. Dee and I were noticing that when the teachers found their new students and started the lesson, you forgot about the TV. You forgot about me. All you cared about was your teacher and your student, right? And the story. So that was very nice to watch. I was walking around. No one was paying attention to me. I felt lonely again. But that's a good kind of loneliness. It gives me a chance to step back and assess how my lesson went. Okay, so that's what I was thinking about, and I think it went well. Lame man, blind man, and lame. So let's hear some of the ideas for the morals. I know all of you didn't get to read both, but for those of you who read The Blind Man and the Lame Man, that's I think a pretty easy moral. What is the moral? The blind man puts the lame man on his back and then carries him down the road. A friend in, yeah, good. A proverb is a great way to sum up the moral of a story. A friend in need is a friend indeed. Good. Any other? So a lot of you were saying, I know in Thai, but I don't know in English. What did you come up with?
Together we can succeed.
Together we can succeed.
Succeed.
Good. Together we can succeed. Yeah.
Two heads better than one head.
Two heads. Yeah. Again, a proverb that fits the fable perfectly. Two heads are better than one. Yes.
Team is power.
Team is power. Oh, I like it. Team is power.
What about หัวหิน Yeah, หัวหิน
หัวหิน? I'm sorry I forget you sometimes.
No problem, Jeff. But I follow you.
I'm not used to this format.
So,
Sorry.
all right, we got the answer from our group.
So, hands in hands, we can go together.
Hand in hand, we can go together. Yeah. Any other variations on that? Hand in hand, we can go together. That's kind of like the AFS slogan.
I'm not sure. But we got the same answer like you. Two heads better than one.
Two heads are better than one.
That you mentioned, right?
The team one is interesting because in business, I think that there's an expression, teamwork always gets the job done. Teamwork always gets something like that. But I love the two heads are better than one. Team is power. Okay, dream team. How about the wolf and the dog? Let's start with Hua Hin this time. What did you get for the moral? I see that clever young teacher. She's going to volunteer. Oh, she's a student, teacher like that, small t. It doesn't have to be a proverb, but yeah. Okay, Gik?
Yeah, right. There's a model from my students. They want to share their idea.
Great. Let's hear it.
Be proud of yourself.
Who in the story needed to be proud of himself?
The wolf.
Yeah, the wolf. Was the dog proud of himself? Yes. Rightly so. What did the wolf have that the dog didn't have?
Freedom.
Yes, freedom. And I think here in Bangkok, oh yeah, okay, very good. That's great. This is from a student, okay, not a classroom teacher like you. She's a teacher for today. Over here, I think one of the groups used freedom in your moral. What did you? Are you the teacher or the student? We have another student, young student, Mateo Nung here.
Mateo Nung.
Freedom is the best way of life.
Freedom is the best way of life. Do you agree? Sometimes. I think I agree. It sounds very American. Freedom is the best way of life. Americans always pride themselves in freedom and independence and things like that. So I kind of like that. So who makes the choice for freedom in the story? The wolf. What makes him decide? Oh, wait. I'm going to stop. I love these stories, but I want you to ask questions. So, Gik, I think we've discussed the morals of these two stories enough for the moment. To finish up, I want to backtrack a little bit. We've looked at getting students to ask questions in this two-way street. Now we're going to go back to the rabbits and the frogs and expand some of our teacher questions. Okay? We're going to look at the questions that I asked outside of the word map, the extra questions. I gave you a worksheet with the frog on it. It looks something like this. Gik, do you have the... It'll be on...
Yeah, we got it.
You've got it, okay.
Right, I've got it.
Does everyone... Yeah. Okay. These are some of the questions that I asked during my demonstration. Now, in this next activity, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to decide whether these questions are just remembering, recall questions, or whether they require a deeper level of thinking, real thinking, thinking with a capital T. Okay? So for example, who was Aesop? R is remembering or recall. T is thinking. R or T? R.
R, recall.
Yes, recall or remember. What are fables? Maybe a little bit of both. Maybe a little bit of both. For those of you who learned in school that fables are stories with morals, you just simply had to recall without thinking about that too much. But we had to do a little bit of discussion of what a moral is, that it's value, that it's this life lesson. So I like both as an answer. Hua Hin, why did Aesop tell fables? R or T?
T.
T. Why questions are almost always T questions. And this is a secret to getting at critical thinking. Why? You need to be able to pose that question to your students often, and they need to be able to answer it, sometimes with your help. How many animals can you think of that jump? It's just R. I think it's just R. Maybe a little bit of thinking when you start thinking of more unusual animals, like lice, okay, or lizards. That took a little bit of thinking. Why were the rabbits afraid of all the other animals? I think because you don't have many rabbits in Thailand except as pets. That required some thinking, some imagination. You had to think, well, you know, small tigers, maybe someone's going to eat them. What sort of noise might a rabbit make? Hua Hin? Hua Hin answered that question. What sort of noise?
It's a T.
Yeah.
Number 6, yes, T.
I think T because we had a hard time imagining. Bangkok was roaring. But then Hua Hin thought of the Thunder Bunny, right? Which I thought was very good. Okay, so I'm going to say T there. What is the moral of the story?
T.
That's the big T. Big T. Can you think of a proverb that is similar to the moral? Two heads are better than one. Team is power. Yeah, that's T. It's a little bit of memory, too, because you have proverbs stored in your brain. For example, a number of the groups had the Thai proverb ready. So you recalled that, but then you kind of test it. You analyze and evaluate whether it fits that story or not. Okay, good. Hua Hin, what is another possible moral for the story?
T. Not even T.
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 The morals are always an analytical, figuring out process. The most difficult part of a fable lesson, generally. How did the frogs help to change the rabbits' minds? A little bit of R, a little bit of T. You have to remember that the frogs jumped into the water and that the old rabbit realized that the frogs were afraid of them. But to really understand why they changed their mind takes a little bit deeper thinking. So R and T. What did the old rabbit realize when the frogs jumped? T, and a little bit of recall. He realized that the frogs were afraid of them, but then we had to go a little bit further. R and T again, I would say. This one, I don't know if I really asked it. How can we make ourselves feel better when we have a problem? T. I think that I did most of the thinking during that part. Can you think of anybody in real life who is like the rabbits? Yeah, that's T. Can you think of anybody like the rabbits? Maybe the Taliban. I don't know. T, sure. How might you change, I didn't ask you this one, how might you change the ending of the fable? Definitely. Okay. There you're using creativity. And sometimes changing the ending will change the moral. Here's a couple morals. Which moral do you prefer for the fable? Look before you leap, or there is always someone less fortunate than you. Do you prefer A or B? How many of you prefer A? Who in? Let's see a show of hands. How many of you prefer A? Look before you leap. How many of you prefer B?
Because both A and B.
A again. Let's see hands. A. And
อาจารย์ยกมือเลยค่ะ
I think B has it. B. Geek, how about in Hua Hin? Was it B?
There's only 2 or 3 for A, and the rest choose B.
Yeah. I think ultimately that's what the rabbits learn. But in the course of learning that, the other lesson, look before you leap, also applies. Think carefully before you make decisions. I kind of like look before you leap because they're animals that jump. Oh well. Okay, last one. Can you think about a time in your life when look before you leap applied? When you discussed it, did everyone think of something? R or T? But don't you also have to remember? Yeah, so both. And I think this is important to remember. And this is why, up to this point, I haven't gone into a lot of terminology. We're just looking at either memory or real thinking. But the tricky thing is that a lot of thinking is a combination of different skills. It's a complicated process. And past presenters, I think, sometimes presented a kind of artificial isolation of these thinking skills. These skills interact. Gick, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint real quickly, and I'm going to review some of the terms that the past presenters in the critical thinking series have used. Notably Leslie Upbeckham, Cindy Kiefer, and Marty Anderson. Okay? How many of you were here for... Okay, some of you remember Marty, Cindy, and Leslie. Let's take a look at some of the terms that they used. PowerPoint, please. I think I need the big PowerPoint. Yeah, Okay. And quickly, here are the questions. And this is, I think we decided here that there were more combination skills, more RTs than I have indicated there. Who is Aesop? That activating prior knowledge is the skill. And before you start any reading or listening, that's what you want to do with your students. Warm up the topic, find out what they know, find out what their background knowledge is. Why did Aesop tell fables? This is analysis. Why were the rabbits afraid of all the other animals? Analysis. We sort of have to break it down. Animals, small, maybe tasty meat. Other animals, eagles, snakes, like to eat them, easy to catch. What sort of noise? Analysis, again, we have to think Are they making it from this part of their body or from their feet, or how do they make this noise? What is the moral? Again, breaking it down. What were the events in the story? Why did they make this decision? How did it end the way it did? Analysis. Can you think of a proverb? This is a little bit of synthesis, putting the proverb together with the moral, and a little bit of analysis. What is another possible moral? Again, analysis. How can we make ourselves feel better? Here we're going to apply the moral to our own lives. Okay, remember, there's always someone less fortunate than you. There's always a garbage man out there making less money. Can you think of anybody in real life who is like the rabbits? Application again. A lot of these terms come from Bloom, the American educator, who was contracted to come up with a classification system of thinking skills. But since Bloom, I think there's been a tendency to isolate the thinking skills. And here, I'm just trying to think of thinking with a big T. How might you change this fable? Creative thinking, synthesis. And then, which moral do you prefer? Evaluation. And I put decision making. Okay, you have to choose A or B. You have to datsinjai. Okay. And finally, can you think of a time when moral 1? Can you think of a time when moral 2? Apply a time in your life, a situation in your life. Apply the moral or apply the new information from the text to your life. And here are the definitions. I think this is in a handout that you'll receive, so don't bother writing this all down. Activating prior knowledge. What's another word for prior knowledge? Background knowledge. And I think that's the term that Thai teachers use. It's just fine. Recalling something previously learned that is related to the topic or task. Analysis. What's analysis? Between two things. That's, yeah. What's between two things? That's okay. Analysis. Gik, how about in Hua Hin?
Okay, I'll be with you. Okay, so analysis is just like you examine the information.
You
examine the information or just clarify the information or something like that. Think about it.
And how do you clarify it? You're cheating.
How I do it?
Yeah. I use the expression, you break things down, okay? You take the story apart a little bit.
Right.
Try to, in this case, we're trying to figure out the moral. That was the main analysis. In the case of the noise the rabbits made, we were kind of imagining the parts of the body. We're kind of going, okay, will they make it from their mouth or their neck? And Mr. Thunder Bunny in Hua Hin thought, that when they jump and run. How many of you know Bambi from Walt Disney? What was that rabbit's name? Thumper. Thumper. Some of my students remember that. Okay. Analysis, clarifying information by examining parts. And you were saying two things, relationships. So good. And that's why Gik agreed with you. Application. What's the verb that comes from application? Apply. Okay, so you apply the information, in this case the moral, to real-life situations. Creative thinking. What's another word for creative thinking? That's the verb, okay. Another word for creative thinking. Imagination, okay. So, I want to put emphasis, original. Have your students change the story. Maybe the frogs and the rabbits could have a meeting before they make their decision. Maybe you could put a new character in the blind man and the lame man. Maybe you could add, who could you add to the blind man and the lame man? New character. The deaf man. I don't know. Okay. And creative thinking is an example of process thinking. It's not just one skill. It's a complex interaction of different skills. A little bit of remembering, a lot of imagination, and you have to kind of make some decisions. Do I want a deaf man? Do I want a deaf girl? Maybe let's put a woman in the story. Why do we always have guys? Decision making. This is again this idea of having choices. I made you vote. Okay, it's always a nice idea in class. Get a show of hands. You've got to train your students to do this. It sometimes takes a couple of goes. Selecting from different choices. And again, decision making is going to be a process where you might break things down, do a little bit of analysis, and then you have to evaluate, and then you make your judgment. Okay, so a complex series of thinking skills. We can't see that, but I'm going to try to elicit it. You're assessing the quality of ideas. What's the skill? You're assessing the quality of ideas. What's the thinking skill? Teachers do it all the time. Evaluate, okay? So evaluation. And I hope that's all. So there's a little review of some of the terminology for critical thinking that previous presenters have used. I just thought I would try to wrap up with that today. But more importantly, I wanted to simplify things and just distinguish for today between remembering and real thinking, okay? So that when we're asking questions in class, we're trying to get our students to go beyond just understanding, beyond just remembering, but trying to go a little deeper, figure things out. If I had more time, I would now have you come up with some deeper questions for one of the fables. Do I have much time? She's going, no. That's called the hook in show business, or the trap door in the stage. So, I think... Oh, there's one more, sorry. Synthesis, changing or recombining information in a new way. Blind Man and the Lame Man, Wolf and the Dog, and the AUA Teacher Education Department, a shameless plug to help me keep my job. Okay. Thank you. You were great participants. Huahin, thank you very much.
Thank you very much that you've learned with you, Jeff. Thank you.
How did it go in Huahin? Was it pretty good?
Thank you. Yeah, it worked well here. And it's proof that if the student can do it, so the teacher can do it in the real class.
Do you think we could get a live comment from one of your participants, how they felt about it?
Okay.
What did they like about today? And also, I want someone to think of what you really learned from today.
Very clear.
Gick, anybody?
Yes, there's a volunteer that wants to share the idea.
Someone's going to turn their
what
mic
they
on.
learned.
Okay, just a minute please อาจารย์รอสักครู่นะคะเดี๋ยวขอปิดสรุปนิดนึงแล้วเดี๋ยวเราตัดก่อนแล้วเดี๋ยวค่อยเป็น off screen นะคะค่ะสำหรับวันนี้นะคะอาจารย์เจฟฟรีย์ก็ได้แนะนำนะคะถึงเรื่องก็เป็น critical thinking ในอีกตอนหนึ่งที่ชื่อเรื่องว่า asking questions a two-way street นะคะซึ่งอาจารย์เน้นว่าการถามคำถามเนี่ยไม่ใช่ว่าเฉพาะครูที่เป็นผู้ถามคำถามได้แล้วก็ถามคำถามโดยไม่ใช่ just แค่ใช้ remember recall นะคะแต่ว่าจะต้องเป็นการเป็น real thinking นะคะโดยเน้นให้นักเรียนเนี่ยรู้จักใช้เหตุใช้ผลนะคะใช้ความคิดวิเคราะห์แล้วก็ตามที่เราได้เรียนมาในเซสชันก่อนๆนี้นะคะก็คือว่าใช้ การคิดนะคะก่อนที่จะถามนะคะแล้วก็ที่จะเรียนรู้แล้วการเรียนอันนี้แม้จะเป็นเรียน reading แต่ว่าเริ่มต้นด้วย listening speaking ก่อนนะคะเพื่อที่เป็นการนำเข้าสู่เรื่องแล้วก็ให้เข้าใจเรื่องได้นะคะแล้วก็หลังไม่จำเป็นต้องให้อ่านทันทีนะคะแล้วก็ถึงเป็น two way street ก็คือทั้งนักเรียนทั้งครู share information แล้วก็ถามคำถามได้แต่คำถามเน้นว่าจะต้องเป็นคำถามที่เป็นการคิดวิเคราะห์นะคะที่เป็นลึกลงไปค่ะสำหรับวันนี้ก็ขอขอบคุณอาจารย์เจฟฟรีย์นะคะ AUA ก็ขอขอบคุณท่านผู้ชมทุกท่านนะคะค่ะขอบคุณค่ะสวัสดีค่ะ